sound. Yes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Jerusalem. My name is Amir Balaban. I'm the head of the Urban Wildlife Initiative and a proud member of the Israeli Ornithological Center.
BirdLife Israel.
BirdLife Israel. And we are here live from Jerusalem in the Nili and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory. And today with me is an amazing team. This is Dror, our National Service volunteer, and Rea Shaish, our bird ringer, bird bander, as you say in North America. And to start off with this spring migration spectacle, we will open with an intro from Dan Alon, our head honcho, and he will set off this, I hope, very exciting birding event, a peculiar birding event. It's a Zoom event. So Dan Alon.
Hi, shalom. Good afternoon from Jerusalem. Spring is all over in Israel. I know that over there in Europe and North America, you still wait for spring to come. So here it's spring, beautiful. Everything is blooming around. Lots of birds. So we are very excited to open this webinar this beautiful afternoon from Jerusalem, Eilat, the north part of Israel, and maybe also other places. We'll see how it goes. I would like to thank Tzvika Yador. Tzvika is an amateur birder who helped these webinars to happen, support. So thank you very much, Tzvika, for all your help. And I wish all of us a great afternoon. And Amir, please.
Yeah. So, for those who are joining us for the first time, Israel is a unique country from many aspects, but we are also one of the most important migratory stopovers for Western Palearctic and West Asian birds. Although we are all located in different places in the world, we are feeling how the seasons change and how North America is warming up, Europe is warming up. And here in the Middle East, this change of weather is very, very quick. And during the last few weeks, we have seen rise in temperature. All the vegetation is waking up, and bird migration was actually set off 2 weeks ago, and now we are beginning to get the first waves of migrants. Like every Southern European country, a lot of our birds overwinter here during winter, and we are actually seeing how they change their behavior, and they're starting to feed and prepare for migration. Today we'll be visiting a few sites. We'll be visiting a stopover site in the north, in the Hula Valley. Nadav Israeli will be showing some of these birds that are landing in the Hula Valley. We will get to know some of the passerines, the songbirds that use the parks of Jerusalem as a refueling site. And if we're lucky, we'll meet Meidad Goren in the south with one of our cameras that are set on a Griffin Vulture nest. They are now well into their breeding season. And of course, Eilat, one of the world's most renowned birding sites and stopover sites where birds actually enter the Mediterranean zone. It's the gateway to Israel from the south. So this amazing phenomena where hundreds of millions of birds start working their way up north is not only unique to Israel. It's also a phenomena that is observed regularly in North and South America and also in East Asia. Israel is located in such a place that we are literally a crossroads. So every little bush, every little park, every little nature reserve, forest, is a very important habitat for migratory birds. So in this March broadcast, we will share with you this unique phenomena. And I have with me the team that will monitor the birds that have been passing through the JBO today. And I see we have a very special Mediterranean little warbler with us that we will soon show you. Okay, so here we have one of our common migrants. This is the Eastern Orpheon warbler. And you might have heard this name, a warbler. It's a very descriptive name because these birds actually warble and they have a very, very unique song. Each one of these birds that pass through the JBO will receive a band, a ring, an aluminum ring. Oh, Dror, our trainee, has already put a little ring on this bird's leg, tarsus. And right now, what we will do before this bird is released, we will take some measurements. The first measurement would be a wing length, which is 82. And we will also take the length of the tail, 67. And last thing, which is just as important, we will check the fat score. These birds will have to fly a long distance till they will reach their breeding sites, probably in Southern Europe, something like 2,000 kilometers from here. In order to make this voyage, they will need to collect body fat, which will be used as fuel. The way we see what the fat condition is by blowing on the chest feathers. We can actually see the fat that accumulates between the two wishbone, between the chest muscles. So this bird has accumulated a fat score of about 4, which means it's nearly ready to fly northward or towards Turkey, crossing the eastern part of the Mediterranean. Without preparing properly, this bird will not reach its final destination. Would be, I would say, Hungary or Greece, or even southern Turkey. So these refueling sites, such as places like the Nili and David Bird Observatory or the Eilat Bird Observatory, are critical for these birds. So the other thing that we can observe when we look at these fine warblers is the shape of the bill. The shape of the bill indicates the type of food these birds need in order to complete their mission. And this is a typical insectivorous bill or beak. And it's used to collect little insects in the vegetation. And remember, the timing of the migration fits the season and the peak of the flowering period. Many of our Mediterranean trees and flowers and shrubs are all flowering, so there are a lot of pollinators around. So this fine little warbler, which is not very colorful, but it's a very good singer, will feed on these little invertebrates and little insects. And by this, it will accumulate the fat needed for the rest of the journey. So the last thing that we do is we will weigh this warbler. And it always amazes me how light these birds are. 23.2 grams, which is 0.82 ounces. We don't usually do ounces, but I have ounces on the scale, so a lot of times. So this is something very, very light that can manage to fly very long distances. And remember, Israel is halfway. So if this migrant comes from Eastern Africa and reaches Hungary, the total distance this bird covers is over 5,000 kilometers. Okay, it's a huge distance for such a bird. It's an amazing feat. Now, this looks like an adult female. The reason I say this looks like an adult female is because the eye is pale. And also one of the things I always look at is the state of the feathers, the abrasion of the feathers. This is how we age the birds. So this Orpheon warbler, by the way, got its name from the Greek mythology. Orpheus played his, what did he play? His lyre, in order to release Eurydice from hell. And the song is amazing. Just Google Orpheon warbler song. Sivchi Choresh. It's such a melodic song. I think after the Nightingale, this is one of the best songs ever in the Mediterranean habitats. Now, it's very important to understand that although truly an amazing song. So it's very important to understand that our work here is basically low-tech. The rings we use are aluminum rings. This is a ring used for white storks, and every ring usually has a serial number and also the name of the ringing center, which is the Israeli ringing. And everybody that finds this information teach us. This is something which is, important not only for Europe, Africa, and Israel. If you find a dead bird, check if it has a ring on it, because the data we receive from these findings is extremely important. Our statistics are one out of 2,000 birds banded or ringed, depending if you're from England or the United States, is retrapped or found somewhere else on the route. And this is very, very important information, because with this information, we can create policy. The SPNI, the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, together with international organizations and organizations in different countries, create policy that advances wildlife conservation. Birds are amazing indicators, because if we understand where the important bird habitats are, these are usually important habitats for different taxa. It could be plants or other wildlife. So we use the birds to identify these unique places. We need to know where the most important places are, because we can't protect everything. Nature reserves are protected areas, but there are many urban areas or farmland areas that need extra protection. So not only that we gather the birds, the information through the birds, we also work with the communities. So this is why the JBO, for example, and the Eilat Center, okay, this is Alona, another one of our National Service volunteers, are also working as community centers. We have a community. We work with the Jerusalem community in Eilat. Noam works with the farmland community, with the urban communities, and so on and so on. We need to work with as many stakeholders as possible. Now, after I've monitored this beautiful Orpheon warbler, I will release it. And I would very much like to hurry up north and see what Nadav Israel is holding for us. So one of the best parts of our job is when we release the bird back to the wild. And there it goes. Wow. Who knows? Maybe we'll find this bird here in the JBO next year on the same date. And this is something that sometimes happens, that we catch specific species year after year on the same date, on the same tree. You know, a lot of people say bird brain. Bird brain apparently is quite a powerful tool. Before, רגע, מה יש לך פה? יותר מסודרת? Okay. A second bird, just a quick peek at this very, very minute little migrant. This is a Chaffinch, one of our smaller warblers. And this little bird actually camouflages as a little leaf. And in Hebrew, we call it little leaf because it resembles a leaf. And you can see that it has a minute thin bill, feeds on mites. People who grow roses love them because they eat all the mites that harm the roses. And this bird will migrate off to Russia, 3,000 kilometers north of Israel, and it will usually breed in lush woodland and forest. So there it goes. We'll release it back to the wild. There it goes. So we'll be moving off to the north now, to Nadav Israeli that coordinates all our conservation work in the north. Nadav, are you with us? Nadav? Nadav Israeli?
Amir?
Nadav, please
Amir,
introduce
hi.
yourself. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. And let's get cracking on your northern birds.
Okay, hi everybody. Hi Amir. I'm here in the Hula Valley, in the north part of Israel. I'll switch the camera so you can see the valley itself. I'm not sure if you can see it. This is Mount Hermon with just a little bit of snow on top of it, so in the northeastern corner of the valley. Golan Heights to the east of the valley, and the Galil Mountains, Naphtali Ridge to the west side of the valley. And there in the haze, you can actually see the border with Lebanon. It's about 40 kilometers or about 30 miles north of where I'm sitting at the moment in one of the fields of the Hula Valley. And I want to take you with me into the world of bird watchers using this spotting scope here with me, and just take you with me into the scope eyepiece. Here we are. And this is how you see the world through the scope eyepiece. At the moment, the nice flock of white storks that just arrived from a day of migration. And the field I'm in at the moment is a field that was just plowed today. And so all the, sorry about that, all the rodents and the insects and beetles in the ground are now on the ground. And you can see the storks are just walking through the field trying to find something to feed on. These white storks are on migration now north from, some of them go all the way to East Africa, some of them all go all the way to South Africa. And they're not breeding, in Israel. There's a very small population of a few tens of white storks coupled pairs that are breeding in Israel, but most of them are breeding in Central Eastern Europe and Russia. So we are not their final destination on their northbound migration. We're just a stopover site. And this is just one example of how agriculture and nature sometimes can work together. At the moment, the farmers are in some fields, they're finishing their winter crops, and they're plowing. You see the stork is picking the ground, or a beetle. And so the farmers are preparing the fields for the spring crops and summer crops. So for them, these very nice flock of storks who is feeding in the field is actually sanitizing this field from rodents and beetles that might cause damage to the next crop. It not always work perfectly well. Some birds are damaging the farm. We do have sometimes conflicts between birds and farmers, but this is one example we see that you can work together. I'll show you the stork just landing in. Oh, just landed. This stork just finished now day of migration. Storks migrate using hot air thermals. They rarely flap their wings and using their own muscles. Only in the winter. Only at the beginning of the day when they fly their first hundreds of meters or a few the few kilometers early in the morning to get the thermals. And once they start to glide on the hot air thermals, they can glide very, very high. They soar on the hot air rising from the ground very, very high, up to 2 kilometers easily. And then they glide to the direction they want to go. This way they can cover hundreds of kilometers every day with hardly flapping the wings. And this stork, this one, just finished a day of migration. When the sun is coming down, the storks they have to land because there are no more hot air thermals. So they try to find a place to stay at night, and the Hula Valley is a great place because they might not only find a roosting place here, but also a snack. So this one just arrived from, maybe she covered 400, 500 kilometers today. I'm not sure if she looks tired or not, but she's now here hoping to find some food, and usually they'll spend the night on trees or on poles. You see what the stork is doing at the moment. It's cleaning itself, cleaning the feathers and preening, getting the feathers in good condition for the next day of migration. This is the first thing usually that birds are doing after a day of migration, is preening, preening the feathers, scratching their ears as well, and getting ready for another day of migration that will start tomorrow. These storks are covering huge distances in short time, because on spring migration, they're in a hurry. They're in a hurry to get to their breeding grounds in Eastern Europe and Russia, to get the best territories, to find their mate back, and to start the breeding cycle, and to be able to complete it before it gets too cold next autumn, this coming autumn, at the end of summer in Europe. Otherwise, their chicks will not be strong enough and big enough to migrate south again. So they're in a hurry at the moment. They will not stay more than a day usually in the Hula Valley unless they don't have enough energy or they're not in a good condition to continue their migration. I'll try now to see, or check if there's some other birds around here that I want to show you. There was a group of cranes. Yes, there they are. Let me just pan a little bit to the right here. Stay with me.
Ah, Nadav, yeah, we want to see those gray big birds.
Just behind this vegetation, a little bit behind. But this is a group of common cranes. Some of them have spent the winter in the Hula Valley. These are common cranes. So about 40,000 common cranes have spent a winter in the Hula Valley. We estimate about 100 or 120,000 common cranes are migrating every year over the Hula Valley from Scandinavia, Northern Europe, and Russia, where they breed, to Ethiopia, where they spend the winters. Oh, a black kite just went in the frame and out of it again. And some of them are staying in the Hula Valley for the whole winter. That's an example of a conflict between agriculture and nature, but it's not a constant conflict, because cranes, when they come in autumn, they're not in a conflict with the farmers, because they're feeding on the leftovers of crops, peanuts and corn. But when winter comes and the farmers are starting to sow their winter crops, peas, carrots, garlic, and so on, this time cranes can cause huge damages to the farmers' crops. And for just over 20 years, there was a combined project here in the Hula Valley. Farmers, Society for Protection of Nature in Israel, the National Parks Authority, and the Ecotourism Park of the Agamon and the JNF work together to feed first to protect the farmers' fields and to chase the cranes off the farmers' fields, not to allow cranes to inflict damages to the farmers' fields, and on the other hand, to feed cranes in a designated field, and also to allow people to come and see them, to develop ecotourism based on the cranes. For many years, it worked very well. The only problem was that the numbers of cranes that choose to stay in the Hula Valley for the winter grew, not necessarily due to the fact that they were fed in one place, but other parameters contributed to that. There were other reasons for that, but it grew from about 10,000 when this project started in 1998 to just over almost 50,000 cranes three years ago. And now for 2 years, this project is hanging on a limb. The farmers are not willing to cooperate so much anymore, and we're trying to find other solutions. I don't have the answer yet where this project is going, but I can say that we are thinking about it and working on it, hopefully in collaboration with all the other stakeholders here in the valley, the farmers, the National Parks Authority, and Agamon Hula Park JNF. Amir, do you have any questions regarding?
Yeah, first of all,
cranes?
we have a few questions. We have 3 questions that I'd like to answer, and I have a question myself, a quiz. And I'm going to start with my quiz. And first person who will answer correctly will receive either this nice game for kids or this memory game with all the Israeli typical birds. And the question goes like this. What bird species nests in Jerusalem and forms the oldest colony known in birding history or bird history? And the person who will identify that bird and state the site of this colony will receive this luxurious memory game with all the birds of Israel. It will be sent to you wherever you are. There are people here from Bermuda, which is Australia. Whoa, this is amazing. So think about it. Oh, we got to correct. Carolyn from where? Carolyn. Whoa. I think maybe a lot of people. Okay. Stop. We'll have to ask another quiz. The answer was the common swift. This is the common swift. A prehistoric looking bird, very primitive looking bird, airborne most of its life, nests in cliff in cracks on cliffs, and has adapted to man-made structures in old cities. And you know, Jerusalem is a very old city, and our largest and oldest, one of the largest and oldest colonies known to the birding world is in the Kotel, in the Western Wall. And it's one of the most impressive colonies ever. And in order to, West Papua New Guinea, my God, we want to go there. Birds of paradise, wow, what an honor. Fantastic. So I might ask another question later on. And I want to answer 3 questions. The first one, question we received is why do birds bother to migrate? Well, migration is an evolutionary response to change. And you know that our planet circles the sun and circles itself, and it takes a whole year. And while it does so, different parts of our planet get closer and farther from the sun. Thus, we get seasons. The northern hemisphere, when it's the furthest from the sun, becomes very cold, usually freezes up. So all the biomass decreases. So there are 2 options, either to hibernate or to change diets, which very few creatures can actually manage. A lot of them either hibernate or migrate. And this phenomenon of migration is very, very powerful because it actually enables a lot of species to adapt to the seasonal changes. The big disadvantage is when you migrate to the southern hemisphere, that most of the southern hemisphere is sea. Okay, so when it's summer in the southern hemisphere, there's not enough room to breed, but there is enough room to have fun, basically. So when spring comes to the northern hemisphere, all the birds that have migrated down to the southern continents shoot up to grab breeding sites, available breeding sites up in the northern hemisphere. So we get this enormous movement of flying birds to the north right now, and they're all flying up and up and getting closer to the northern hemisphere. Now, the other question that we were asked is how do they navigate? And here there are 2 basic elements. Some of the navigational skills are hereditary; they're in their genes. Birds actually come out of their egg shell and they know their migrational direction. It's in their genes. So that's one aspect. The other thing is that they learn from their experience. It could be experience gained by flying with other birds, such as cranes. Juvenile cranes will migrate with their parents for 2 years, nearly 2 years, or a year, at least a year. And some migrate in flocks or waves of warblers. And the other thing is they have amazing sight and memory. That means birds will remember geographical features, city lights, shorelines, to such a detail that they can remember a specific good tree they used in the previous year. This is how we managed to catch the same bird on the same tree on the same day. And the third question that we were asked, and I will try to answer it as quickly as possible because we want to go down to Eilat, is climate change. How does climate change affect birds? And I'm sad to say the effect is severe. It's severe because when climate becomes abrupt, it's challenging for breeding birds on the nest. It's challenging for birds en route. We had a huge die-off of migrants last fall in North America due to very severe bad weather while birds were doing their southerly route towards Florida. And millions of birds were perished in North America. We see huge die-offs of spring migration birds that encounter severe hot weather. And these have become more frequent and very, very devastating. The other thing is that we see that habitats change. We see how desertification or change in habitats affect the success rate of the breeding rate of many species. So this is a big challenge for a lot of species. We also see how birds adapt, how they change their the dates of arrival. In Europe, we see an advancement of arrival. Birds are coming back earlier. And some birds decide not to go further south to Africa and overwinter in Israel because winter has become very, very, very warm. So a lot of birds change their migratory flight plan. So this is very, very interesting. This is data that we see when we work in our banding stations, in our ringing stations all over Israel. So this is why the network is so important. This is why it's so important to conserve as many sites as possible. And for the people here that are members of STNI, you are assisting not only local birds, but you are a part of a network of organizations that work worldwide. So even if you live in North America, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and you help SPNI, you are a part of this network. Okay, so this is very important. Now, I'm really curious to know what's happening down in Eilat. Noam Weiss, the head of the bird ringing station and our conservation efforts in the south, will host us. Noam, are you with us?
Hey, thank you, Amir, and hi everyone. Welcome to sunny Eilat, the capital of bird migration of Israel, just on the bottleneck connecting 3 continents. And this chap right here is the little ring plover. It's the first I see this season, just a fresh arrived today into the bird sanctuary, already feeding on our water flies that we make sure that he gets more than enough for himself. He's not the only client here. You can see also a gray wagtail just arrived here and also collecting these flies. Eilat is an extremely important stopover site for migratory birds because south of us, there is just desert, just the Sahara Desert. So birds are crossing 3,000 kilometers, about 2,000 miles of flight without any food, arriving here just to have some a nice meal. Here is a black-winged stilt, joined the feast too. And you are now located on one of our lakes at the Eilat Bird Sanctuary. It's artificial. Unfortunately, the story of Eilat is a sad and happy story. Sad because the habitats of birds that used to be here are gone. It was a salt marsh, doesn't exist anymore. We completely destroyed it for building a town. But the good side of the story is we rebuilt it. Now we are building habitats for migratory birds, and they are just surrounding us everywhere. We are just surrounding. You can't see it, but I'm surrounded by flocks of swallows all around me. This lake I'm standing next to is completely new. We sensed that the birds need more wetlands, so we made this new lake with the help of the National Lands Fund and the Ministry of Tourism. And the lake isn't ready yet. It's still not completely ready because vegetation is still not on, but the birds are here big time. They are not waiting for anything to be completed. They are ready with their stuff. And let's see, they are ready to feed because this is when they need it. They need it right now. And here, this is when we are ready to give it to them. Just a second, some trouble with digiscoping. Here is a green shank, just a second. Is it? Yeah, no, it's a ruff, an Arctic bird. No, and a green shank, sorry, an Arctic bird too. And you might be able to spot the amount of water flies on the surface of the water. Just amazing, because we are still waiting for giant numbers of migrants to arrive here, and we are already preparing the food for their journey. So this is just the first days of spring in Eilat. We are just starting the birds are just starting to pass, but we are already pretty full of big amounts of birds. So these are mainly insect eaters. If we look more in the lake, oh, here is another friend. Oh, it's gone. That's the little grebe. And I bet it's after a fish down there under the water. And if it will catch it and drop it, so the slender-billed gull would probably wait and steal it from it. So slender-billed gull, another common migrant arriving in huge numbers. I've seen a flock of 1,000 today. And they also feed on shrimps, crabs, and all kinds of small fish it can find here on the water. And let's see how our grebe did. Oh, gone again under the water. What an amazing bird. And here is another cute stilt here, feasting on huge, just a second, it's a bit hard to control everything. I'm totally alone down here. Here is, just look at this stilt surrounded by food. It's like being in the best restaurant ever. There is so much food around it. It just needs to pick one fly and eat it. So it is having a good time. It will have no doubt enough fuel to continue its journey wherever it goes. Some people think that stilts might be sedentary because we see them all year round, but one I ringed made it to Chad, so I guess they do fly pretty far. So this is our work. Our work is to create food for the birds, but it's a difficult task because all our habitat, almost all our natural habitat that birds used to use in Eilat are unfortunately not with us anymore. So my main work is actually not with birds. I do enjoy myself right now, but my main work is with people. I have to go to every habitat that hosts migratory birds that birds choose. And they choose fields, they choose salt ponds, they choose switch ponds, they even choose gardens of people in their homes. And we need to convince all these important people, us, that bird migration is important and they need to change their conduct and be nicer to the birds, produce more birds for them and keep safe environment for them. So how do we do it? Our job is based on community, just like Amir described. Oh, not so happy with what I'm saying, but he's part of the community here too. So what are we doing? We are convincing the people that birds are amazing, that birds are great. And our main tool is the bird sanctuary. We have real estate with a project of renovating a habitat that was destroyed. And we are actually showing them that we did well for the birds. Now it's their turn to do so. So this is why we built this amazing bird sanctuary. And you can see our setting. Look where we are. We are in the middle of the desert. And in the desert, we have fantastic habitats. And we also build infrastructure. And a lot of people come here and watch the birds, appreciate them, and hear, listen to what we have to say. And what we have to say is, let's do nature conservation together. Let's be partners for nature conservation, because the birds in Eilat really needs people's help. Some projects we have with the switch ponds right now, how to make it a better place for the birds with lots of food, and more importantly, safer. Because of power lines around, we put perches so the birds can sit there safely away from the power lines. And we have a project with the farmers right now. Farmers use a lot of pesticides because they have a serious pest problem. And the birds actually eat these pests. Migratory birds are an asset in Southern Arava. So our farmers can actually enjoy the services of pest control by migratory birds if they would only make their fields more hospitable and nicer for the birds. So how do you convince a farmer that this is the right conduct of things? Well, you give them research. You show them with scientific tools that that the birds actually eat their insects. Where do they spend their time? How much time do they spend in their field? And how much do they eat? When you quantify it for the farmer, usually totally amazed, then he would understand. Then he would change his conduct. And if they are not sure, we offer them integrated management of pests, IPM system, so they don't have to trust us. They can try taking care of the pests on their own. And if they're not successful with the birds, and if they're not successful, they may use whatever thing they used to do in the past, like even pesticides. So this place is a place for birds, but it's a place also for people. This is the environmental cultural hub of Eilat. You want to present a book about environment, this is where to do it. You want to give a lecture, you want to make a happening, you want to make a theater show about environment, this is definitely the place. And I think people of Eilat, vote for us. We have elections soon, and on election day, we are going to open our gates for free guiding. We are always free, by the way. We are totally accessible to everyone. Everyone can enter here all the time and pay nothing. And we are going to be very hospitable, like every day, to our community and present them what we do and how they can help us. So
Noam,
this is
Noam, we have a few questions, and
yes.
If you'll allow me, I'd like to add a few very important things. One of the most important things about our bird centers is that we operate them as public open space, meaning they are open to the public. Some of them are located. Opa. We have something. I will let Nadav take over. Nadav, please take over.
No, you can continue talking, Amir, and we'll just watch this wonderful little raptor. It's called a black-shouldered kite. I moved a little bit to look for more birds, and I encountered this gorgeous black-shouldered kite. You see, it's about the size of a falcon, slightly bigger. But you see the strong talons of this bird. This is a bird of prey. It preys on small mammals like mice and voles off the fields of the farmers, like Noam mentioned earlier. This is a valuable bird for the farmers. Farmers want this bird to nest close to their fields because it feeds on a lot of voles and mice off their fields, and you can see the curved bill used to cut pieces of flesh and to eat it. this raptor, this bird was a very rare bird in Israel until about 15 years ago, when we started to see more and more of this bird, but still maybe 1 or 2 annually. And then in 2011, Amir, I think you were here that autumn. We saw one black-shouldered kite, and then it was joined by another one, and then they were carrying nesting materials, and then we saw them building a nest and mating, and a month and a half afterwards, we saw 3 little heads peeking out of the nest. And here in the Hula Valley, that was the first recorded breeding of. Oh wow, this is beautiful. Preening its feather. That was the first recorded breeding of black-shouldered kites in Israel, and since then they're all over the country. So at the moment, I think any estimation of about 750 to 1,000 pairs of black-shouldered kites across the country of Israel is good, and they're all over farmlands, and they were naturally they arrived naturally in Israel, probably from the east, expanding their range. There are 2 populations of black-shouldered kites in the world: an African one and an Asian one. And our birds are mostly from the Asian population. So this population probably is expanding its range west, and now they're here in Israel, and they're doing very well in the
Nadav, this is a very good example of birds changing their range and adapting to the new conditions in Israel. And this probably has something to do with climate change as well. As you may know, the Mediterranean Sea temperature has been rising gradually during the last few years. And this is one of the reasons the weather in Israel during winter time is milder. So
you see the head movement. You see the head movements. This bird saw something on the ground, and it's moving its head from side to side, sometimes in circles, to get a better look. Decided at the moment not to try and catch what it saw, but this is how when their eyes catch something, they do like a movement in a circle with their head to get a better look from different angles. Yeah.
Yes,
Amir,
it's called this movement is called baiting.
baiting.
Beautiful, and it's a very vocal raptor. I think it's one of the most vocal raptors we have in Israel. I don't think any other raptor is vocal as this.
I zoomed out a little bit to try and see the bigger picture, because it's this bird is at the moment is standing on a power pylon, and Noah mentioned it earlier. Power pylons and electricity infrastructure in Israel is doing a lot of damage to birds, and especially raptors. And going to fly? No. And we are the BirdLife Israel and SPNI is working together with the Israel Electricity Company and the National Parks Authority to try and minimize the damage done from power lines and power pylons to birds. But it's still, there's a lot to be done there, really a lot to be done.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Nadav, you're always full of surprises and great bird spotting. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to see what else you'll find in the Hula Valley, one of the most amazing birding sites in the Middle East. And well, I would say it's on a global level.
It moved a little bit, so now you can actually see why this bird is called a black-shouldered kite. Oh, just moved. But it has it's in the tree now, and you can't really see it, but it has a gray back and a black shoulder. That's why they called black-shouldered kites. Yeah.
So
Amir,
we
back
have,
to you.
Nadav, we have another very common migrant that arrives in Jerusalem in the beginning of spring. Oh, pop. Just before we move on to Meidad, can you see me? Oh, Meidad. Meidad, we can't hear Meidad yet, but can you see? Can they see me, Ellen?
I'm here. Amir?
Meidad, we can't see you and we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now and can you see me now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
How about now? I opened my camera, so you should see me.
Okay, before Meidad appears, Meidad is our man in the south, in the Negev mountains. You know that 2/3 of Israel is desert habitat. So we are definitely well involved in protecting important bird habitats in the south. In charge of these desert habitats in the SPNI is Meidad Goren, and wow. So I see we have a bit of a problem with the connection with Meidad. So just before we move on to Meidad, this is an eastern Bonnelli's warbler, very similar to the Chaffinch I showed you a few minutes ago. It's a much paler bird, and it's recognized by its very greenish rump. And it's a very, very delicate warbler that will be migrating to the southern part of Europe. And it's moving from Africa, arriving to Israel, and it will be with us for the next 2 weeks until most of the population flies and reaches its breeding sites. And I will release this bird too. And we have a few more birds. Is Meidad ready, Ellen? He's online. One last bird before we move on to Meidad. And oh, a seed eater. This is the Chaffinch. The Chaffinch is one of Europe's common seed eaters, forest seed eaters. This is a female. In Hebrew, they have an interesting name. They are called Parush. Parush because they leave Europe and males and females separate. They have Ezrat Nashim, Ezrat Gvarim. And in Israel, most of the population that overwinters here are females. We do have some males, but mostly females. And you can see that the bill, oh, that's a short, stubby bill that's adapted to crack little seeds and collect seeds and seedlings on the ground. And this bird nests in southern Europe, also in Mount Hermon. Last year, a small population was found nesting in the forests of Mount Hermon. Has these beautiful markings on the wing, beautiful. Parush Matsui, Chaffinch. And I'm going to release this bird. And now we're going to move on to Meidad Goren. One more question. People ask, are the birds stressed? The answer is yes. But the stress is very short because the whole process is a very quick one. From the trapping nets we use that are very delicate, all the people who extract the birds are very well trained. They have to be. They overgo a very long and meticulous training program. And the whole process here, the scientific process, is very short and quick. So the birds do get stressed, but what we found out during the many years we're doing this process is that it's not that serious. They will stick around, they will stay, and they will use the site and they will return. That means they either have a short memory or the stress is not that severe. So this is the answer to this question. There's not a problem with scent from my hands. Birds do use smell. Not all of the birds. Most of them are usually dependent on sight and hearing. Few birds depend on scent. Okay, so that's not a problem here. So, Meidad Goren, we're very curious to see what's happening in the south. Meidad, are you with me?
I'm here. How are you?
So,
Amir?
over to you.
Okay, Alan. Okay, so basically, hello everybody. Meidad, my name is Meidad. I'm from the Ramat Negev Birding Center, and at the moment I'm at the office. Since it's a bit of an issue to find birds in the windy weather of the desert afternoons, and we decided to give you a bit of a surprise. So this is not me, obviously, and this is not what I see at the moment in front of my eyes, but I can tell you that this Griffin Vulture is sitting on a nest just basically 5 minutes from my office, which is it's a great privilege. And this huge bird is called Eurasian Griffin Vulture. And as I was listening to Nadav earlier and watching his beautiful views of the black-shouldered kite or black-winged kite, he was mentioning, and I thought to myself as he was mentioning the electricity pylons and the electricity power lines, that it just basically the burst preview for this bird's stories. This bird's story, basically. So a little bit about the Griffin Vulture. That's the photo that you see at the moment, the video that you see at the moment is actually happening as we see it, as we speak. You can see the time on the right hand side, the top right and side of the screen. It's 4:32 here. Obviously, for you guys, it's a bit earlier. But this is a camera view of the nest in the Negev mountain. As I said before, not far from my office. We started, or this beautiful project started at 2016, where the idea was to try and set a network of cameras, online cameras that will present our beautiful birds of prey at the peak of their lives, at this breeding and raising their chicks. And this vulture, this Eurasian Griffin Vulture, is one of the few species that we already managed to show to millions all over the world in the last almost 5 years. So what's the idea? The idea is that you can log into our website, www.birds.org.il, and then you can see it's the hugest window that you can basically just click on, and then you can choose which animal, which bird you want to follow. At the moment, there's a couple of species that you can choose from. The vulture is one of them. Since we are now in mid-March, this bird, which I'm not really sure if it's the female or male, I think it's the male, but I'm not sure. Since I can't really see the number, can you guys see it? I think it might be the female. Since it looks like, I'll try to read it later, but I can't see it for sure. I know that the male is T99 and the female is J35, which are the numbers that are placed on the wings, the wing tags, since both of these birds have been ringed and both been placed with transmitters. So we can actually follow on live to see where they come from. The male, T99, just returned about 10 days ago from a trip to Jordan. He did a bit of a visit. I think it's just, I wish I was him, let's put it this way. But he just came back after an absence of like 3 days, which at the time, J35, his wife, was sitting on an egg for 3 days in a row. Didn't leave the egg, obviously didn't eat or anything else, which is quite impressive. And he came back to replace her. So basically, it's still got a bit of a few days, a few weeks to sit on eggs, but we hope that soon there will be a little chick that you can follow online. But what's really amazing about the story of this bird is that about a year ago, after 2 years of successful, or after 1 year actually, of successful chick raising, and sometime when last year, when the chick was 85 days old, just a bit more than 2 months, the guys, the rangers, the nature parks authorities rangers received a message that his wife K70 is not moving, and that's a problem, because it can only mean basically one thing, that, or if it's not moving for some time, it can say that it hurts, especially when it's near a power line. Very, very quickly, the rangers went there and they found her dead. Now, the problem was that the chick was still young. He still got about close to more than 50 days that he needs to be fed. And the father can't do it by himself. And then both the parents need to go and come back with food and feed it, otherwise it will basically not survive. And so what happened was that a very, very I don't know how to call it. It's just I don't know if you call it I'll call it the Israeli genius. The idea was that if it can't feed it by itself, we'll help him. But how can we help it when they breed, and they breed in the middle of a cliff? You can't see it right now, but Griffin vultures, like a lot of other birds of prey, breed on the enormous cliffs of the Negev mountains and Judean desert, and you can't reach it by foot. But fortunately, there are a few new devices that can allow us to reach there, and everybody probably know the drones that now rule the skies in many parts of the world, and in Israel it's not different. And so a few organizations joined a special unit of the army with some high-tech company that provided a drone, a very, very sophisticated drone, and together with the nature parks authorities, until the chick was about 140 days old, so for almost 2 months, it was fed every 2 days. The drone basically carried his lunch. If it was usually it was rats, and if there was no rats, then a nice piece of meat with basically the meat was not just the ordinary meat we eat, it was added with supplements that the chick needs in order to grow properly. And at the moment, it was really nerve-wracking because we had no idea whether the chick's gonna accept the food. But as you can see, when you go online and you search in a website, a nice video was made to show the whole process, how actually the chick just went and stormed and charged the food and ate it very, very nicely. And that's the way it went. And when there was no stacks and no rats, then a nice piece of entrecote was there as well. Let's say it ate quite well, this chick, and it fledged successfully, which was a big story. And it was the first time in the world that things like that happens. And it just shows that, even when things look bad, you can, with a little bit of creativity, you can make wonders. The even nicer story is that the male T99 came back this year, and I remember walking just around November and seeing him sitting on the cliff, and it was just magnificent. And let's hope that this season will be as successful as last year, without the sad part, the tragedy of losing the mother. So this vulture, yeah,
yeah. First of all, I must admit, it looks like it's not a real bird. It looks like a stuffed bird that you put on the cliff, but it's amazing that the patience vultures have just to incubate the eggs for such a long period. That's also an amazing feature. And I must admit, as a young child, I remember the skies of Israel in the north, in the Golan, in the Galilee, and also in the Negev and the Judean desert as filled with vultures. And it's such a typical sight, and it has become a very rare one. Very, very rare
just
one.
what I wanted to say, Amir, because I wanted to add that only a few decades ago, the population of vultures in Israel was roughly more than 100 pairs all over the country, in the north, in the Golan Heights, and in the Judean desert and the Negev. And today, the population is cut by half. So we're struggling to come up with 50 pairs, somewhere between 40 to 50 pairs every year. That's very worrying. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I participated in the annual vulture count, which basically is carried out all over the country. And that was the first time I count almost every year in the same place near Sde Boker and Wadi Zin. And that was the first year that I counted no bird coming down, landing to roost. There was just a few nests there, and that was quite. It's interesting. The counts themselves are lower, but we're still looking, and we are still hopeful about getting this species to survive in Israel. And yeah, that's it, Amir.
Okay, Meidad, first of all, thank you very much from this update from the Griffin Vulture live cam, and you're all invited to go into our live cam feed and watch the different raptors nesting, and most of them are incubating now. Some will have chicks very soon, and this is an amazing opportunity to get a very intimate view of what's happening with birds. Before we move to Noam and to the Eilat bird ringing station, I would like to share with you a little migrant that we are very, very thankful for. And it's the reason why we created this bird observatory. In 1994, April 24th, early morning, our first round in the nets, we found this little fine warbler, very similar to the Orpheon, but much smaller. This is the lesser white-throat. This migrant had a ring on its leg, and the ring was from Stockholm, Sweden. In this amazing morning, we decided to set on an expedition that led us to the creation of the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. We were very naive, and we thought it would be very easy to acquire 1.5 acres by the parliament. The parliament is over there, the Supreme Court is over there. It took us a few years and a lot of good friends that helped us all over, from ministries, from the municipality, from SPNI, and a lot of supporters, international supporters. And thanks to this little bird, we're working here today, working on urban conservation, protecting bird habitats in Jerusalem and all over the Judean hills. And we're very thankful for this. So I'm going to send this bird off. This Sunday, the previous Sunday, we caught a bird carrying a British ring. So these birds migrate from Western Europe to the British Isles. That's amazing. From Israel, from Eastern Africa, through the Mediterranean, around the Mediterranean, way off to Western Europe. So let's send them off. There he goes. And now we're off to Eilat to see the birds that have just arrived to Eilat, Noam and Iris. Iris is one of our young up-and-coming bird ringers and wildlife conservationists. Show us what you have, guys.
Okay, thank you, Amir. And yes, Iris is here. I must say something, Amir, about the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. As a person that also grew there, I'm also from Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the place for people to grow, to become naturalists. This is their host, this is their homegrown place where they learn how to conduct nature conservation, how to love nature, how to be part of it. And I must say, if you look at the Israeli map of environmentalists, work for the government, for ministries, or for NGOs or educational system, they're all coming from Jerusalem. It is no surprise the amazing job that Amir, you and your guys are doing there. And thank you for Iris. Iris, coming from Jerusalem too, gave 1 year of her life. Instead of going to the army, she postponed her army service, and she spent 1 year for one purpose only. Fun? No, birds. Also birds, yes. So, yeah, so we have also a ringing station down here in Eilat. It's slightly busier than the one in Jerusalem at the moment. I think we caught almost 100 birds this morning. And right now you can see the beautiful bulbul asking me, why do we actually catch these birds? Wouldn't they be better off away in the wild, feeding and continuing their migration? And the answer is, we have no way to know how to help these birds without making a small scale research, long term, but small scale. And I'll explain why. We run a man-made habitat. We have no idea if our man-made habitat actually suits the needs of all the birds. This is why we must check how do the birds physically respond to our stopover site, the artificial stopover site. And by that, you can go. By that, we do that by examining their physical condition. And Iris is going to show you how. Okay, so ringing or banding is not about the band. The band is there, but it's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to check the physical condition of a bird during its migration, following its most challenging part of migration, which is crossing the desert. So the bird Iris is holding right now is a sparrow. It's not a house sparrow, not the English sparrow. It's the Spanish sparrow, which is actually still a migrant. It's a migratory bird. Unlike the urban city house sparrows that learn to overcome migration by urbanizing, getting urbanized, the Spanish sparrow still do it. They still migrate. And please feel free to do that. So she's marking it with a small band, yes, which is marking. I think that the Jerusalem guys already explained how they do it. So technically, here's the ring, and she will measure it. But the most important thing is to check the physical condition of the bird by weighing it and by examining the fat score. Fat score will allow us to know how ready this bird is to continue its migration. Okay, I'm holding right here while this bird is being ringed. I kept a bird from before, just a minute ago. This is the house sparrow, the English sparrow. Here in Israel, it's native, and we love it actually. It's eating grains and cleaning up our environment from the garbage we leave, but also eating lots of insects when it needs to give some food for its offspring in spring. And this is why during winter, we don't see so many of them at the bird sanctuary. They're around town. But now in spring, they come to town. They come from town to the sanctuary for one sake only, to get some protein for their offsprings. And you already saw an Orpheon warbler in Jerusalem, and here is one of ours still behind, about 300 kilometers behind the one that already made it to Jerusalem. This is a beautiful adult male, and it's now not singing the beautiful song that Amir let you sing. And the most important thing is, as we said, is to check the full of weight. It's amazing. So these chaps are really ready for migration. These are migration animals. And our Spanish sparrow female is ready to follow its male that just flew a few minutes ago all the way to southern Europe. And we have really loads of birds. This morning we caught a swallow that was ringing the year before, while breeding in the Dead Sea region. So it was coming from Africa, arriving to Eilat, will eat a little bit here and continue back home to the Dead Sea region. The lesser white-throat, one of our most common birds that we have in this season. For this bird specifically, we plant Persian Salvadora. Persian Salvadora is a very rare plant in Israel, almost extinct from the wild. So we managed to get some seeds and some fruits with seeds and planted them here. And this way we are bringing back this plant back to nature and helping the lesser white-throat. Why? Because it gives its red berries exactly on the second and third week of March when these guys are picking. So I estimate the number of lesser white-throats in the bird sanctuary of Eilat right now to be over 1,000. Okay, they're everywhere. You pass through the bushes and you hear the tuck, 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 tuck. I remember Patricia, the head of BirdLife International, visiting here, and she said, this is like a old typewriter. It sounds like a typewriter is working here all the time. This is because of this beautiful lesser white-throat, called in German Klappe, Grasmucker, because clack, clack, it clips its hands, sounds like it clips its hands all the time. And let's see what's here. Lots of surprises. Okay, a beautiful one is, we had a lesser white-throat. Here is the greater one, the greater white-throat. Almost ready for migration, I guess. Beautifully ready, full of fat. This is a beautiful young female on its way to breed for the first time. Okay, so this is
Noam, we had a question about the incubation of Griffin Vultures, and I told you that vultures have to be very patient because the incubation period is 57 days. 57 days sitting and incubating. So they do, males and females do take turns, and they are, from that point of view, they share the duty. But sometimes they will sit for 3 whole days without moving. But remember, because they also nest in desert areas, they can't stand and they don't have to be, covering the eggs all the time. But at night and early mornings and afternoons, when it gets chilly, they have to incubate. And there was another question about women, and I will let Ellen answer this question. Women play a very important role in wildlife conservation in Israel. They manage us, and you see Ellen producing the whole webinar and this production. So Ellen, you're answering on the computer?
Yes. So hi, everybody. My name's Alan, and I'm the director here at the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. As Amir says, I'm behind the scenes today, making sure the Facebook and everything is running well. In Israel, we have less women involved in the top layers of bird watching, and this is something that I'm working very strongly to change. And as you saw, Noam has one of our young recruits, a young woman that we're working with, Iris, working with him down in Eilat. Here in Jerusalem, we have a crew of young women that are also learning the ropes and will hopefully be taking over from some of us who are looking towards retirement and happy to hand over the reins to the next generation in the next few years. But it's a challenge, and it's one of the things that the Bird Observatory is working with BirdLife International to make bird watching and bird research something that's available to women, to ultra-Orthodox to Arabs, to anybody who wants to participate in this great hobby that we have here. And I want to thank Noam and Medad and Nadav and Amir and Rhea and all the crew that helped us today for this great presentation. The birds really came out in force for us this afternoon. That is not necessarily something that will happen in the late afternoon. So we're very grateful to the birds as well. If you enjoyed this program and if you enjoyed watching the birds with us, we want to encourage you to join us again. We will be online in another couple of weeks and we will post that in the emails and in the Facebook and let you guys know that. And to support us. Every dollar, every shekel, every pound that comes in helps with our conservation work, helps with the research, and helps with the outreach to the young women and the young people who want to be involved. So Lawrence, you're going to say a few words about where they can send their things to?
Yes.
Where you can donate and how you can be involved. And once again, we want to thank Zvika Yadov, make sure I say it correctly, who has supported these online programs for the last, I think it's going on 6 months now. Time is passing quickly since Sukkot. So yeah, Zvika has jumped in and said, I want to make sure that these programs continue and we can outreach people. We want to thank our donors of our beautiful Betan Ariel that helps us to keep this bird observatory running and the research going, and to all the donors that have helped us to survive the first year up and running and back into action. So thank you. And Lawrence, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, everyone who has joined us this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are in the world. We're really thrilled and honored that so many people from literally around the world have joined us. As Alan said, we are, first of all, we are the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. And our Berlin unit is BirdLife Israel. We are not for profit, we are a charity, and we rely on donations from the public to continue our operations. If you would like to support us, we can provide tax deductible receipts in Israel, the USA, Canada, the UK, and many other currencies. All you have to do is go to our website, www.natureisrael.org, click the donate button in the top right hand corner, select your currency, and by the magic of the internet, you will receive a donation receipt in that currency. Thank you so much to everyone who has already donated to support our work. As Alain said, we do these webinars regularly. I'm sure we will have a late spring migration spectacular in a few weeks' time. Next Sunday, another woman involved in conservation, our CEO Iris Han, will be giving a presentation about the oil spill, which is currently afflicting the Mediterranean beaches, and about how we are working now to stop the same thing happening in Eilat, which we're really terrified will destroy the coral reefs. So please join us next Sunday for that, which will be at 8 p.m. Israel time, which I believe will be 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock day-night saving time in New York. It's now the top of the hour. Thank you very much. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please send us an email to international@sbni.org.il or jbo@inter.net.il. We do try and answer every question received by email. Thank you very much to Amir, Alain, Noam, Nadav, Medad, the birds, and everyone who has joined us this morning. Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch by email, hopefully. And we look forward to hearing more from you all in the future. Have a great day or evening.
Thanks, Lawrence, and thanks everybody who joined us today. Have a good day, morning, evening, wherever you are.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.